Previously I talked about Johnny World and how his world was something we came to call that. We all lived in Johnny World. This chapter starts, however, we didn't live in Johnny World and we were due for a change. It came rather unexpectedly in the summer of 1987. Friends of ours had moved to Prince Edward Island the previous year and they invited us to come to visit them. Sandra really needed a break, and taking Johnny on a road trip at that time didn't seem like much of one, so she and James hopped a train and went down east. Johnny and I held down the fort in Niagara Falls. Well, about 3 days into her visit, she phoned me. She said, I want to move here. I must have really needed a change because I thought about it for maybe 2 seconds and said, okay with me. Sandra shopped around and picked out a property, and we put in an offer conditional on the sale of our house in Niagara. No problem there. The house sold in less than 24 hours. We made a good profit. We had enough for a good down payment and a nest egg until we got work on PEI. Work. A lot of people thought we were crazy, but sometimes a big change is needed. A friend at work who was from Cape Breton was amazed. He said, I've never heard of anyone moving that way. He was stunned. His experience was of people moving away from there to Ontario where the grass was supposedly greener. I suppose that living with someone like Johnny gives you a different perspective on life and the ability to adapt quickly. Nothing was ever certain with him, and the thought of a stable routine was a foreign concept to us. The fact that I had never been to PEI, had never laid eyes on my new house, knew only one family, had no job, no prospect of a job, and had enough money for perhaps 6 months, didn't seem to faze me. Perhaps people were right. Maybe I was crazy. We never regretted the move here. James was 10 at the time. He looks back and thanks us for moving. The island is a great place to raise a family, and as it turned out, also a great place to raise a child with special needs. I look back on that seemingly hasty move in '87, and I see now that it couldn't have been better if it had been planned for years. It was the change that we needed at the time, and the best one for our future. And I've often told people that we couldn't be in a better place in Canada to have a child like Johnny, because you can get the help you need by talking to the people right at the top, the deputy minister. And they make changes that are best for the family, best for Johnny. In Ontario, we'd have been lost in the shuffle. And right now, Johnny would have been, I hate to even think. Anyhow, I drove the rental truck onto the island in the middle of August, and here we are. I'll tell you a story about Johnny's first day at school on PEI. It's entitled Canned Lunch. After our initial settling in period, it was time to set about establishing some kind of a routine. For Johnny, this meant school. It was decided that he should be in a special class in school that was age appropriate. For him, this meant the junior high for grades 7 to 9. Johnny was assigned a school bus with the regular kids. He was used to a specialized bus only for handicapped, special needs kids. I could never get used to this political correctness thing. They're not handicapped anymore, they're challenged. Sorry, but I think we're all challenged in some ways. Anyhow, Johnny was set to ride a regular school bus. Looking back, I can't believe we thought it might work. We saw him off that first morning with his lunch pail in hand. I noticed that the bus stopped a couple of 100 feet down the road and then continued on. Thought no more about it until the phone rang. Could we meet with the school principal that afternoon? Sure, what now? As Sandra and I entered the office, we saw a large, friendly-looking man seated beside the principal. This was Johnny's bus driver. He was a local farmer who drove bus on the side. He gave us his tale of woe. Johnny had taken a seat a couple of rows back and sat for about 2 seconds as the bus drove away. He then stood up and tried to move seats. The driver told him to sit. He refused. The driver told him again. Same result. Now, this man was used to the kids listening. He was old school. He stopped the bus and tried to stare him down. Johnny took this as a direct challenge and stared back. Frustrated, the man bellowed at him to sit. We lamely asked, Did he sit? The man said, no, he threw his lunch can at me. Lunch can? A lunch pail on the island is called a can because the kids used to carry a real can with their lunch years ago. So even brightly painted pails with cartoon characters and superheroes are still called cans. Whatever. Johnny fired his lunch can at the driver and then calmly walked to the back of the bus. I guess it's true, the bad kids really do sit at the back of the bus. Not surprisingly, that ended Johnny's bus riding days. It was no use trying to explain the folly of treating this kid like he had a normal fear of adults. Intimidation was useless as a tool in Johnny's case.